So we're going to be commencing our afternoon program now, and kicking it off would be our third keynote for the day. And sharing with us would be Mr. Hemanta Banerjee from Rackspace Technology. He's a Vice President of Public Cloud Data Services. So over to you, Hemanta.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So, quick introduction. I'm Hemanta. I lead the right in my face. I lead the public cloud data solutions for Rackspace. I'm a very recent Racker, comparatively speaking. I joined Rackspace in January of this year. I forgot my clicker. Thank you. So I joined Rackspace January of this year. Shameless plug, I was one of the co-founders of Just Analytics, local data and AI company. We were the Microsoft Azure Data and AI Partner of the Year, 4 years running in both Singapore and Vietnam. Beginning of this year, we were acquired by Rackspace, and I'm heading the public cloud data solutions for Rackspace globally. Now, the topic for today is, the role of data ops in digital transformation. Now, before we go into the role of data ops specifically, wanted to drill down on the, kind of set the problem definition first. Digital. I don't think anybody in this room will really contest the need for digital transformation and the impact that it is happening. But if you kind of take a step back, what you'll see is, in the post-COVID world, there are three different challenges, three different areas that companies are having to kind of simultaneously deal with. The first area is what I would call as, amplification of interactions of, I don't know the right word or what word to use, but I call it the amplification of the interactions that our customers expect. Our customers, our employees, our partners, as they're interacting with us, the expectations of how they interact with us, the types of interactions they have, how intelligent those interactions need to be, that demand has really increased and has really increased. It was already increasing with the advent of the cloud and the cloud becoming more popular, but it has really shifted in the last 2 years of COVID. So from an organization perspective, I've been working with data since 1997, and in a lot of ways, even if you go back like 3 or 4 years, what you would see is data was seen more as a rear view mirror thing. We would collect the data, we would run a batch every day, or we would run a batch every month, we would produce some reports, we would analyze the reports, and then we would kind of figure out what to do next. That pattern has really shifted. We have customers where their data lake is getting refreshed every 5 seconds. So it has really shifted where data has become an integral part of how applications are being built. So the intelligence in applications is being driven natively using data as the engine to do that. And so it has really shifted, both the collection of data, processing of data, the whole data ops side of things has really shifted from being something that was needed, necessary, but was not critical infrastructure, has moved on to being critical infrastructure because the applications won't work if the underlying data and the underlying analytics is not there. So that's what we're going to focus on today. There are 2 more areas which are really changing fairly rapidly. The first one is security. So we are moving from what I would call as the M&M model of security to kind of a zero trust model of security. The M&M model of security being you have a very hard shell around it, but once you kind of penetrate the shell, once you are inside, then you have pretty much access to everything within the organization. That used to be the way when people were all working on premises, on locations, but with customers, partners being outside the premises, these interactions, these applications becoming more global. You have to kind of rethink how the data is secured within organizations. That's a topic by itself. We're not going to cover that today. And the third is the changes that are happening at the organizational level from how people and individuals, where becoming a learning organization really is a mandatory, necessary requirement just to survive instead of being a nice kind of HR objective. The technology is changing very rapidly. The demands from our partners are changing. How we are interacting with them is changing. And organizations have to be, individuals within the organizations have to kind of step up and make learning part of the daily job in order for you to even survive in this marketplace. And that is again an area which is really challenging for many organizations, and again a topic by itself which I'm not going to cover. But broadly speaking, sort of these are the three key things, and all of them underpin a fundamental shift in how we look at data, how we treat data as an asset, how we collect the data, how we organize the data, how we process the data, and data ops is kind of critical to that entire process. So, whenever we are talking about digital transformation, whenever we are talking about cloud-led digital transformation, in many cases we are essentially talking about data-driven digital transformation. So they're kind of synonymous with each other, which is where data ops, the methods, the techniques, the technologies that we use to manage and process this data become sort of critical. So this is a survey done by McKinsey. What it says is the potential of data, right? If you were using data effectively and efficiently in your organization, how much additional value you can generate out of that exercise, right? Different organizations will be at different levels of maturity in different markets, different strategies. So you can argue and debate whether this number is exactly the same for your specific case or not. But I think everybody will agree that it can generate significant value for your organizations if you're using data effectively. Now, what I wanted to focus on is why some of the challenges organizations face as they're trying to use data. So this was a survey actually done by us. So we have a group called Rackspace Research. We talk to all of our customers. We try to understand what they're doing. And from the research that we have done, what we see is the challenge in leveraging data falls in a couple of different categories. The first is nascent AI ML technology. So like I said on my first slide, the technology is evolving very rapidly. What we see today, whether it is Spark, whether it is TensorFlow, whichever technology we talk about, they have been around only for like 2 or 3 years. So the technology is changing very rapidly. It's fairly early in the cycle. We are all super excited about it, but we don't know what we don't know. So that's one area where organizations really struggle. The second is identifying ROI. So again, how do you go about using data to improve your business process is unlike an RPA project or an ERP project where you can immediately quantify how much what is the additional value of being more receptive to what your customer is experiencing. It's very hard to justify that. It's hard to put on a spreadsheet. How do you go about quantifying that so that you can get the funds needed for you to keep experimenting and being agile about it? And the third is lack of skills and staff. I actually had a survey in the middle. For whatever reason, it didn't show up. That's fine. I wanted to check from you, whether it aligns to what you are facing in your organization. So really, if you look at it, there are 3 key areas. One is the technology itself. It's fairly new. Second is, do you have the people? Given that the technology is new, for you to have experts in your organization on those technologies is very hard. That's why there's a huge demand for the talent pool. And the third is, how do you explain to your stakeholders, whether it is your leadership team, whether it is your board, that we need to invest in this, and these are the expected returns that we can get out of this. So those are the challenges, and what I will try to do through the rest of the presentation is kind of walk you through why we run into those pitfalls and what can we do to get over it or to confront it. We probably can't get over it. So looking at a problem, let's say there's a problem. Let's say we want to increase the number of customers who we have an e-commerce site, and we want to increase the number of customers who make purchases after putting things on a cart. Let's say, or if I'm running a customer service call center, I want to increase the customer satisfaction of the people who are calling in. Whenever we're talking about solving business problems using data, our first instinct is to focus very much on the specific model, on the specific dashboard that we need to build. And that's something that we as practitioners, we have kind of trained everybody to do, right? We'll build the recommendation model, or we'll build the customer satisfaction dashboard, or we'll build an AI model that will convert voice to text. So we focus very much on the specific model, on the specific dashboard, on the specific calculation metric and so on that we need to build in order for us to measure that. But what we realize is when you take a step back and try to take that particular model, or you try to take the particular dashboard and try to deploy that into production, what you will, the model might perform really, really well. But once you deploy it in production, you're not able to get value out of it. And the reasons are nothing to do with the model itself. Usually, when we don't get value, we throw out the model. We say the whole experiment failed. Let's get rid of the data scientists. They don't know what they're doing. Let's go back to doing things the old way. What we don't realize as people running the business is model is only a very small part of the problem statement itself. This is again research done by Google. I forgot to put the reference. It's a research done by Google, which essentially says model is a very small part of, it's less than 25% of the problem when we are trying to run something in production. It comes down to everything around the model to be running very efficiently, very effectively, so that the model can be improved and can be made more accurate over time. And by not focusing on things like the data that we are giving to the model, how accurate is that? Can we change the business process so that we are collecting more accurate data? How are we serving this information? Is the API layer that is sitting in front of the model itself, is it able to handle the requests in an efficient manner? Can it scale up as the number of people to my website increases? Can it scale down and consume and we spend less money when the number of people are coming to my website are less? So how strong is my serving infrastructure? How strong is my monitoring on the model itself? How quickly can I go back, get the results out of the model, and then retrain and tune the model? So there's a whole bunch of things that we need to do and all of these areas are collectively called as DataOps. How do we go about and make sure that the method and the technologies that we are using to ensure that the data that goes into the model, the data that goes into the dashboard, and how that information is consumed, whether by human beings, whether by applications, is done in a scalable manner, is what ultimately determines whether that experiment is going to be successful in an organization. Even then, the experiment might fail, but if we don't take care of these things, the experiment will surely fail without showing results. So what does that mean from how we need to think about it? Again, if you look at it, if we kind of think about it, there is the offense side of things. So when we are talking about creating models or creating dashboards, jumping into it, we are essentially saying, we are what I classify as offense, right? We immediately jump to that. We put a lot of focus on that. We try to make sure we put our best people on that, and then ignore what I call as the defense side of things, which is what we're talking about, the process technologies, methodologies that we use in order to process and maintain the data, right? And in order for you to to actually drive business outcomes, what you need to do is balance offense and defense. As with, it's a sports analogy. You cannot have a soccer team of all forwards. You need to have defense and goalie as well on your side. You need to make sure that your defense does not go out and try to shoot a goal. You need to make sure your goalie is not in the penalty box of your opponent. Every person on the field has a specific role to play. And the same applies when it comes to running data-driven projects within your organization. You need to make sure you're balancing defense and offense. May not be at the same time, but at least throughout the life cycle of the project itself. So what do I mean by that? So I'll spend like very small amount of time on the offense side of things. We all know that data is very critical. We can use data to engage our customers better. Using the interactions that our customers have, we can improve our products. We can empower our people by giving them more information on time. And through these things, having better customer interactions, more tailored products, and empowering our team members to make better decisions, we can improve our operational efficiency. And the entire area around AI, machine learning, analytics, visualization, all of this is related to ensuring that this circle works effectively. What I wanted to focus on more is everything else that is related to making it effective, right? So this is where, so if you look at what we're talking about from an offense perspective, is really this small bit, which is the analytics part. How do you bring new data sets? How do you build AI ML model? How do you share data with your partners? How do you expose your APIs to the application so that these insights can be used within the application? All of us know this. All of us are very familiar with it. You'll find a lot of use cases. I'm not going to bore you guys about that. What I wanted to focus on are things like architecture. So let's say I'm trying to go from a batch which is running every day to something that is running every 30 minutes. How does that have any impact on my data architecture? Does that have any impact in how I'm ingesting data? What technologies am I using to process data? Because if I don't think about it, what's going to happen is my costs are going to increase 12 times. Because what I was doing every night, now I'm doing every 30 minutes. So my costs are going to increase 12 times. And very quickly, my boss is going to come in and say, you know what, the ROI is not good enough. Let's shut down this project. So how do you go about building reference architectures and changing how you are doing things along the way as you're trying to get more real time? How do you make sure that you are actually able to observe what is happening? Observability is really, really important, right? How do you collect the statistics of your ETL, the dirty, shitty work? Collecting the statistics out of your ETL pipelines in terms of how many records were processed, how long did it take, is that increasing over time, is that remaining flat over time? If it's increasing, what are the jobs that are taking more time? All the nitty-gritty details around each and every pipeline which is in your environment, and making sure that you are keeping that efficient, around security, around governance. So really all of these things ensure that when you are in the offense area, your offense can really go ahead and play without being afraid that they're going to drive up your bills. So from a data ops perspective, keeping an eye on the defense ensures that your offense can safely go and continue to play the game that they want to play. So effective organizations balance offense and defense. You need to make sure that you're looking at both aspects if you want to be successful. I'm running out of time. Usually that's what happens when I start talking about it. So I will quickly go to a customer story. So this is again, I'm going into the shameless plug part of my presentation. So this is something that we did for, I can't name the customer, but they're very well known in the space of furniture and home decoration. We helped them build a data platform, pulling data from 18 different sources, 800 jobs, 600 of those 800 jobs running every hour, 300 plus terabytes, Ensuring you cannot run a data platform of this scale just by thinking about specific models, specific dashboards, specific metric, and so on. You have to fundamentally think about how I am going to process this data, what am I going, how I'm going to set up the team, what technologies I'm going to use, what frameworks I'm going to use, and then start to ingest the data. Otherwise, by the time you get to the second or third data source, your team will not be able to handle the load that comes their way from all the jobs that are running. So that's the value of DataOps. We are an Azure expert, so we know how to do this really, really well in the Azure environment. And we are happy to talk to you guys if you have any questions around data and AI, especially around DataOps. So that covers my presentation, opening it up for questions.
Okay, Hemanta, we do have one question before we wrap this up. So, what do you see as the difference between organizations who have been successful and those who have not?
There are two aspects that, so again, I'll use the sports analogy of defense and offense. When you're thinking about, there are two aspects that you need to think about. First is Rome was not built in a day. So when you are investing in data projects, when you're trying to bring a new ML model to improve a business process, the first iteration of that is usually very, very shitty. So you have to kind of implement that, learn from that, and then keep incrementally improving that over time. So it's a journey, it's not a project. So that's one. And the second is what I covered in this. In order for you to go through that journey, you need to make sure that your platform is set up for you to collect the insights and data so that you can learn from what you did not do so well the last time. So I would say those are the two key things.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Wonderful session, and you had a very challenging session because yours is right after lunch. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Yeah. One question here. Thanks. Just one question. How do you deal with senior executives, even up to the CEO level, when you discuss data lake with them? Immediately they think, well, what's our ROI? Where am I going to save the money? Are you going to shut something else down so that I've got all the data here, and so on and so forth? I mean, the way I see it personally, it's a journey, right?
Correct.
And it's not something that you might not see the benefits immediately in the first year, but it's additional cost and so forth. But how would you suggest to deal with that from an executive point of view?
So what we typically try to do is not have massive CapEx projects for these initiatives. And this is where cloud really becomes useful. So you can really spin up and do small experiments incrementally over the course of this journey. And at some point, you would hit a critical mass of experiments, and it would start to show value. So start with small projects, try to go live, be very agile, try to go live in 8 weeks, 10 weeks in that time frame, and repeatedly keep repeating these experiments over the course of this process. And through that iterative process, you will hit a critical mass where you can go. Many times we actually go bottom up. We don't even go up to the board or the executive. We run experiments at the department level. And then once it hits critical mass where we can be sure that this experiment is actually going to add value, is when we take it up and we scale it up.
Great, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much, Hemanta. That was very insightful. Thank you.